Hello and welcome to Idaho Bigfoot. I'm your host, Jeff. And as you can see, guys, we are here in beautiful Goldendale, Washington, and behind me is the absolutely stunning Mount Adams. All right, it is about 6:40 and we're getting breakfast here. The motel has a nice little room over here. As you can see, they got their coffee, they got potatoes, eggs, sausage, bagels, biscuits and gravy, the waffles, which of course I had to go for, cereal, yogurt, all the usual, but it's a nice little spot in here. We're going to enjoy our morning here, and then we're going to try and head out. Well, actually, we're going to be trying to interview a fellow who is why we're here. I got a sighting report from him. He didn't see something, but he talked to a law enforcement officer. So I'm going to be talking with him, just going over what he saw and seeing how that goes. And I did reach out to another person. We'll see if they get back to me. But anyway, I'm going to enjoy my morning here and my waffle. And recording. All right, so if you could please introduce who you are. If you want to use your first and last name or just your first name, whatever you're comfortable with, that's fine.
My name is Lawson. I'm 24 years old and I've been a resident of Goldendale, Klickitat County for most of my life.
What was it that you experienced that you were telling me about talking with that law enforcement officer? If you could go over all that.
So my mother, she cleans for an Airbnb and I was helping her at the time, and we were coming down off the road, a big old dirt road, and it was a gated area to get in. And at the gate there was a police truck. And we were, the police officer was there. I was a little curious about it. We pull up, we get to the gate, we open it. The police officer, he's pulling up to us and he rolls down his window and he asks both of us if we have seen like a mischievous bear or any signs of like a mischievous bear. And my mother is like, no, we haven't seen any signs of bears, because there are bears up there. But the last time I saw one was like 2 years prior, and we haven't really seen any signs since. And so we start trying to ask, is there a bear around here? Is there something we need to ask the, people that are coming into the Airbnb? Do we need to warn them about a bear? And he's like, yeah, so there's a person that was on that stretch that had bought a bunch of land. And apparently a bear had been messing with their equipment. Which that was the first kind of raising a red flag, is a bear messing with equipment. I think actually the first was the term mischievous, which just seems really anthropomorphic to use for a problem bear. And when he described, the first thing was that he mentioned that they had a game cam, because this bear had been in this area, that was 8 feet up on a tree, that had been apparently taken off and smashed. And apparently I think it was a excavator, the fuel tank on it had been apparently taken off and just rolled around for a bit, or dragged around. And that's when it's like, a bear did that? And so he's like, if you report any signs of a bear or whatever, tell us. We've been on the trail of it. And they're pulling in to go up to this property where this has been going on at. And I try to ask a few more questions. I actually got out of the car when he's going up to close the gate to ask him. And it was very difficult to get him to get any details. Like, I try to ask about tracks, how big is this bear, because the bears around here aren't super large. I think they're bigger on the west side.
They're black bears, right?
Yeah, we just have black bears here. So, they're bears, but they're not, like a grizzly or a brown bear or anything like that. And trying to get any information out of him, You know, it's like kind of talking to a wall. It was very vague. You know, I try to ask if, like, has anyone's really seen this bear? And they're like, we try to get it on the cameras, and that's when they, you know, the game cam been smashed. But it had been apparently only coming out at night and whatnot. And that was about it, really, as far as I can remember off the top of my head. It was just that there was just like a bunch of weird things, like the smashed camera. You know, bears don't care about game cameras. And for like, did the bear like climb up 8 foot into this tree, knock it down, and then came back down to smash it, or did it fall on? It seems like a bunch of like, why would a bear do this? Yeah. I'd more likely believe a person did this. But the fact that he was adamant as it being a bear, rather than we have a vandal who's, you know, been trespassing and messing with people's private equipment. So yeah, it was just a bunch of weirdness to it. And that's where it's like, when we were driving away, it's like, are they talking about a Sasquatch? Like what's this? All doesn't make much sense to me, so.
Yeah, and usually Fish and Game gets
yeah,
involved
we asked
with
that.
bears.
We asked that. Like, you know, have you contacted Fish and Game to deal with this? Because usually if we have problem bears, and like, no, we're dealing with it ourselves, which I thought was really weird. Why would the sheriff department be dealing with something that Fish and Game should be called to deal with? Like a black bear that's apparently lost the fear of people or whatever, so, yeah.
Has anyone, how do I word this? The people that own that cabin, have they had any experiences with anything that you know of, or has it all been pretty quiet?
It's been pretty quiet. Like I said, I didn't even really think of those things being here, because west of the Cascades, you got like Mount St. Helens, Rainier. You got those hot spots, but over here, I mean, it's mainly, you know, the last tract of forest is in the Simcoes, and then it's just prairie and then eventually sagebrush steppe. You know, so it's not exactly prime Sasquatch area. So it actually caught me off guard. It's like, I wouldn't even think those things would even be here. So.
It is very interesting. I did see that, I'm not going to be too specific about the area just for privacy's sakes, but in the area where that cabin is and where that landowner is, there is an area of public land there that's owned by Washington State, and I'm hoping to get into that area. It does look like it's a large enough tract of area where maybe something got in there and then couldn't get out. Everything kind of, how do I word this, kind of encroached around it, and it's been stuck in that area.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that might be what's going on.
Like my little, you know, if I was to put on my tinfoil hat, it's a younger male that has actually moved down from where from the Simcoes, and it's been pushed down for whatever reason. And he had made that area, because that was originally all rangeland. The few ranching families, they would move their cattle up there, so there wasn't much for development. It was just, the only signs of people would have been cattle chutes where the people would move their cattle from. But now, especially the person who bought it, he's breaking it up into lots and whatnot, and there's already a bunch of houses there. So I wouldn't be surprised, maybe the presence of people, with it being a younger male, perhaps he's trying to just scare the people or whatever, you know, mess with their stuff. But that would be my theory. But yeah, there is a lot of open land out there still, even though there is houses, so.
No. All right. That would make sense. I'm hoping to get into that area and kind of look around. I wanted to ask you, though, if it's all right, if you could talk about what got you kind of interested in the Bigfoot in the first place, as far as that goes, and just, you know, kind of talking about some of the things that you've been interested in this area, talking about yourself a little more, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. So for me, I've always been into cryptids. I think when I was little, I think it started with like the 2005 King Kong movie of all things, and then learning about like Mokele Mbembe, because I was a big dinosaur nut when I was little. So the idea that there could still be dinosaurs out there really got me into cryptozoology and whatnot. And you know, Bigfoot's a part of that, but I never put too much thought into Sasquatch. It wouldn't actually be until about a year and a half ago when I picked up a book, Bigfoot Sasquatch Evidence by Dr. Grover, that when I actually started reading it, and then reading more about accounts and stuff, it's like there's something really to this. Whatever it is, there's all these consistencies and stuff that are being documented, and I think that's really what piqued my interest, especially with it being here. And my mother actually comes from the west side, Port Angeles. And when she was little, she would hear people talking about it, and she told me about that. So I think that kind of really got me more interested in Sasquatch than when I was younger and just more focused on like Loch Ness Monster and stuff like that, because, oh, dinosaurs. And the more I looked into the Sasquatch and all these reports, it's like there's something here. And so I think that's really what piqued my interest.
All right, and you were telling me off camera about hearing something in this general area. You said, was it 9 minutes away that you had heard something? If you could go over that, that'd be great too.
This was several years back. We lived out of town, and it was about 11:30 at night, give or take. I had my window open. I lived on the second floor of this house. I'm just fiddling on my phone, just scrolling and all that. And I start hearing the coyotes going off, which isn't unusual. During the summer, we usually hear them. And it sounded like two of them that were going back and forth. And then a little later, it sounds like a third one was chiming in, but it sounded off. And that's the best way I can describe it. More like something mimicking a coyote rather than an actual coyote. And the other two, they started like yapping a bit more and louder. And then finally there was just this massive scream, this loud, high-pitched, deafening scream. And at that moment, everything went dead silent. And I just had this feeling of like dread, fear, like a panic attack, I think is the best way I can describe it. Like I got out of my bed just trying to breathe, and it took me a few minutes to kind of calm down, and that's when I noticed really how silent everything was. The crickets weren't chirping anymore. The dogs that were usually barking, there was none of that. It was that sound. The only sound I heard was a car that was coming down the road, and that was the only sound I heard. And then eventually I finally just closed my window, and I probably didn't go to sleep till probably about 1 o'clock, honestly. It was just trying to figure out what just happened, because you know, you got bobcats around here, you got foxes, and you got mountain lions, but it didn't sound like any of those to me. And I've heard those before. I've heard foxes do that weird little banshee cry basically, but it didn't sound like that. And the fact that it caused everything to go silent to me is what really threw me off, and not just, you know, temporary silence and then everything kind of chippers back to life. So that is my real experience. Was it Bigfoot? I don't know. It could have been something else, but it, I guess, is connected to the weirdness and all that. So
Yeah, it's an anomaly at least.
exactly, yeah, it's an anomaly. It's a weird thing to happen. So
now, unfortunately, although I did try well ahead of time to contact that landowner that Lawson spoke about, I was unfortunately unable to do so. And so what I did instead was find an area of public land that isn't very far away from his property as the crow flies. And so me, my mother, and my younger brother went out into the forest of Klickitat County to set up a couple game cameras. And here is that footage. So we parked. We're going to be hiking in, me and these two goobers, and we'll see how we do. Yeah. So what I've been doing here is sometimes 40 feet, I've been putting up a little bit of my signal tape. Once we get in and then get out, the ones near the access point I will be taking down. After a certain point, though, I'm going to leave them up so I can find my way. And this way, I'm talking to the camera too, just, you know, but yeah. But this way, we don't get lost if it gets dark. Looks like a caterpillar type thing, but it's not quite right.
That's weird. It looks like a coral.
Okay, this is looking a little better for me.
So I found a fairly good spot. It's gonna be pointed at that tree right there. I'm gonna have the bark cam up against this thing. Alright, so we moved a little farther down because I realized that this is a good spot too. It blends in a bit better here. And if anything's walking up through here, it's probably not going to notice it. But it would notice my camera that I'm going to put on one of those oak trees. I'm thinking the one on the right. Yeah, thank you. The one right there, I believe. So, we're going to see how this works. I probably got charcoal in my face. So, oh well. But I think this is going to work better. I'm going to get this guy set up first. Wherever it is pointing is where I'm going to put the camera, the second camera. I'm not going to want to adjust this guy too much because I want it to fit in as well as possible. So we'll see how this goes. Here we go.
One eternity later.
Not really. That'll be a bit better. Okay, so now I got that set up. That's the part I hate most. I gotta have this little solar panel connected to the camera, or otherwise it won't have power for more than probably 24 hours. And I'm not gonna be taking this thing down anytime soon, so I wanna make sure that it has the power. It is getting some sunlight here. I guess I could put it up a little higher. I just don't want it to be visible. Okay, so we have it on here. Got the correct date and time. Got it formatted. I have it set to video mode. PIR interval 10 seconds. PIR sensitivity high. No time lapse. No loop recording. IR LED is on auto. 2K 30 frames per second. 35 length video. 35 second video. And audio is on. I got it all formatted. 156,784 photos are available to take. And I just took another one to make sure that it's working. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So, it is officially operating. Making sure that I push this in all the way. Making sure that it is pressed in all the way. I'm pushing it in. As you can see, it is in all the way. As I'm just making sure that everything of mine is tightened as much as I can get it to if it would behave. I really want to be as big a pain in the ass to someone who's trying to steal my cameras as much as possible. I got some electrical tape. As you can see, I did wrap that because I only had the one pipe clamp left. If you could point it up just a tiny bit. There you go. I know I look awkward and gangly, but setting up trail cameras is kind of tough to do. You can't do it while looking pretty. Handsome, I know. Anyway, I'm going to, if my hands would cooperate, it would be fantastic. I'm gonna wrap this around a few times. Keep the cable out of the way.
as much as possible here. Hopefully this will work out to be a good idea. Alright. So now I got that mostly out of the way. Hoping I can just kind of keep it tucked back. This is not perfect by any means, but I do have the burlap here. Hoping I keep it all tucked out of the way. Before I lock this thing in place, I'm gonna go stand where I want to put the other camera, just make sure we're kind of in the ballpark. I'm thinking right about here. That's gonna be perfect because it is a fairly wide field of view. I think it's 120 degrees. I'm gonna turn on my microphone. So now we have better audio. Okay, so now we can match that up, but that's looking right about perfect to me. I don't know about you. I think that'll be about perfect. I'm gonna try and bolt this thing to the tree now. My secret weapon. So you can see, that thing is gonna be pretty good here. It's definitely gonna help. Here we go. I'd like to maybe tuck that right over there. That should help. It's not going to be perfect by any means. None of this will be, but hopefully that will help. Okay. So, we're basically done here. I do want to tuck some of this under there. Then take some of these. That should help. Okay, so I think I'm gonna leave it here. If I had my descent spray, which I meant to bring with, I would just spray this sucker down, but unfortunately I don't have that. So we're gonna just have to go with this and just hope that my scent thing on that camera will be enough to conceal this one. It's only about, I don't know, 50, 60 feet away, so it's not a huge deal.
So, looks like a battery is getting dead here, so we're going to switch it out. Hopefully this will work, and let's keep moving. Here we go. You know, that's something that a lot of people don't keep in mind. You got to make sure any branches within basically a 4-foot vicinity of your trail camera are out of the way, broken and torn down, chopped down, you name it. Because otherwise they're going to give you a lot of problems. They're going to constantly trigger the camera. You're going to have to come back out here. You're going to have to break them anyway or move your camera. Yada, yada, yada. Okay, now, if I were going, aim up a little higher, please. There we go. If I were going for a different setup, then I might not mind having this guy just out. Because if we look at it, it's not perfect, but it doesn't stand out too bad either. You know, in this terrain, it actually looks pretty good at a distance. If I had it sit on a pole, stuck into the ground, it would probably work just fine. And I'm probably going to get another one of these and try that. But for the time being, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it in this lockbox and have it up on the tree. And I'm hoping that if anything comes around, it's going to notice this guy and not that guy. And if anything tries walking around behind it, that guy will pick it up. If anything tries messing with this, that guy should pick it up. Got the trail camera on. It says it's connecting. Okay, it says it's connected. I'm going to go over to my Moultrie app. I'm requesting an on-demand photo. Okay, it says it's ready to view. And my library. There I am. Okay. Not ideal, but that'll work. Okay. Not ideal for a photo of me, I mean. That's perfect for this. Okay, so we are trying to set up the cell camera, and as usual, we're facing some issues. One of them is that the bolt is stuck. It won't go in any farther.
And it really doesn't, it won't wriggle.
It won't wriggle. It won't move. And the impact driver, the bit, now won't come out. I tried using a different type of bolt. Those both broke. So they're forever in this tree, and I don't like that. They just snapped in two.
And this doesn't have anything to grip on.
I can't get the bit for this bolt on now because this sucker won't come out. So we are going to try and use pliers to just hopefully get some grip on this thing.
Pliers.
But yeah, I'm not happy with this. Here, okay.
Are you unwinding it or winding?
I'm trying to unwind it. This bastard oak is so freaking tough. So while we wait to go get a hacksaw and hacksaw blades, I got a Python cable on here that goes through, and then I also got my lock. It ain't going anywhere unless you really, really force it. So hopefully for the time being, this thing is just sturdy and gonna stay in place. So let's pack out.
All right, so as you can see there, we had some difficulties setting up that trail camera. I'm back in my studio here. Actually, this is the first time I've ever posted any videos recorded in the studio. So as far as you guys are concerned, this is brand spanking new, even though I've been working on it quite a bit. So for me, it's not quite as new. There's not quite as much novelty to it, but I hope you like it. We're going to be filming a lot in here in the next few months to come. But to stay on topic here, I just wanted to interject because I realized I forgot to record some clips to give you some context as to what was going to happen next. So I'm just interjecting this clip here. Essentially, we had to go back to town, but by the time we got back, the hardware store was closed. So we ended up going in the morning to the hardware store, Allen's Building Center, got what we needed. I got a pair of bolt cutters, some nice large ones to make sure that I had something capable on me. Anytime I go out into the woods now, I'm going to be bringing that with, just to make sure I have it as a part of my kit. I bought a hacksaw with a blade. I bought a spare blade as well, just to make sure if I needed it that I'd have it as a spare. And then I bought a drill bit for the impact driver, so that way I could pre-drill the holes for the bolts. And I didn't end up using it there. We ended up actually removing the trail camera box. It was made by Camlock Box. I'll put a link down below. They do a good job. And I ended up using it somewhere else. So we just kind of learned some lessons there. Hopefully you guys will learn as well. If you ever try and set up trail cameras, to make sure that you never underestimate a hardwood tree, especially those oaks. Those suckers are tough. They're not at all like the cedars and pine and spruce trees that I'm used to. And even though I knew that, I didn't realize just how tough they were. So I really did underestimate them. So don't make that mistake if you can help it. And I realize now that I need to be more prepared in the future. So I'm glad I was able to pick up those items. They will now be a permanent part of my kit. So that being said, as you will see here next, we went out into the woods again and we collected that trail camera. So here you go.
Come on. All right, fine, jackass.
A few moments later.
So, okay, good. That went a lot quicker than I was thinking it would. Bolt cutters are definitely on the list of things to bring with from now on. So, we're gonna leave our camera up here. We got all our little crab apples on the ground. Got a bunch of bunny poop there I didn't see earlier, so that's cool. So fantastic. All right.
Okay, so as you saw there, short and simple, we ended up collecting the camera, the lockbox, the locks, all that fun stuff. But we did leave the bark cam up. And here are some pictures of it that I took. You might not be able to see as much detail as you would like, but essentially it blends in really well. I was actually extremely surprised by how well it blended in. So I like that idea. That camera is a Vupeak TC21, and I plan on getting more of them after this. So I will show you how I built that in a separate video probably, because it did take a little bit to explain, but I think it worked very well, and I plan on making a few more of them. So then after that, we ended up driving over into Skamania County, over into a town called Bingen. It was quite a pretty drive, some very stark terrain, and there were some really neat tunnels along the way that we got the drive through. Now, the reason that we went over there was so that way we could talk to the owner of Margie's Outdoor Store, Mr. James Shubsky, who was very kind in meeting with me last minute, I might add. I wasn't able to contact him prior to driving over there. So it was very kind of him to meet with me, and he let me interview him on camera, and he went into how they record sightings. And what's interesting is it's not just a Bigfoot, it's about all these other different activities that are considered paranormal, but there's also a second cryptid there that really caught my attention, and that is the Klickitat ape cat. It's really caught my attention. I think it will catch yours as well. Let's dive right in. Here we go.
Hello, my name is James Shubsky, and about 4 years ago, my wife and I inherited my mother-in-law's stores. We're in Margie's Outdoor Store in Bingen, Washington, here in the Columbia River Gorge. So my mother-in-law got sick about 4 years ago, and she has a couple of businesses in town. This one really didn't quite get off the ground, but when she passed away, there were some complications with her estate, and so we needed this store to run so that we could take care of my wife's siblings. And on a lark, I put a Sasquatch in our logo, Margie's Outdoor Store logo. And people sort of took that as a like a welcoming mat and started coming in and telling us stories. And so I decided to make a formal program, a paranormal reporting program. So we put a big sign up in the window that said, "File paranormal reports here." And the one commitment that we made was that we were always going to treat the witnesses with dignity and respect. No matter how outlandish the story sounded, we were going to be a safe place for ordinary people to talk about extraordinary things. And now we are well over 400 reports, and it's just been an amazing journey. We've had everything from Sasquatch reports, which is really one of the biggest set of reports that we get. We have UFO and UAP reports. We have over 130 reports of this enormous black panther creature we call the Klickitat ape cat. But there's a whole range of unusual phenomenon that people come in and report. A lot of poltergeist reports from, ghost reports from the Dalles area and all over the gorge, really. And it's been just amazing to interact with people and to hear their stories and to be a place where they can talk about these things that oftentimes they haven't told anyone.
Fantastic, thank you. So, as far as the Klickitat ape cat, it's really captured my attention. It's interesting. You said that you've seen one?
Well, I may have seen one. Before we even started the reporting program, I was rock climbing out near Horse Thief Butte, which is sort of like a desert mesa about maybe 20 minutes east of here. And below the mesa is a lake that's right alongside the Columbia River. I was looking down into the lake, and I saw a very large creature, bigger than a person but smaller than a car. I was about 700 yards away, so I couldn't make out the details. I could tell that it was like a land animal that was swimming in the water. It wasn't like a water-based creature. It had dark fur, and it seemed to be patrolling the center of the lake. I couldn't identify it at the time. One of the things that really kind of told me I was looking at something that I didn't understand was that it submerged for up to 5 minutes and came back up and continued patrolling. I verified my size estimates because there were some waterfowl on the surface, and I could kind of see based on how big they were compared to the thing that I was looking at. At the time I chalked it up to, okay, I don't know what that was. I don't think it was a bear. Bears typically are not going to, they're point-to-point swimmers. They're not going to spend a lot of time out in the middle of the lake, and they're certainly not going to submerge for 5 minutes. It was only after we started getting reports and I started looking into more information about big black cats that I realized that I may have seen one. And part of that thinking is that we do not have black jaguars up here in the Pacific Northwest. In fact, black cougars are not recognized by science either. But jaguars are incredibly adept swimmers, and they can hold their breath for up to 15 minutes, and they're remarkable swimmers. And so as I started to piece these things together, I realized that I may have seen it. And I want to be really clear that I was too far away to make a positive identification. Since then, once we started the reporting program, we have received over 100 reports. The key features of that, the creature that people describe always has to be a feline body type. It has to have black fur and has to have a long tail. So bobcats and things like that don't count. It also kind of rules out the black bear, which is the most commonly held excuse for what people might be seeing. And so a guy came in, told me about it, the Ape Cat Prime witness, and he said he watched this thing for 3 to 4 minutes across a creek just a few miles from here. And he clearly stated this thing was 4 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder, probably anywhere between 900 to 1,100 pounds, black fur, long tail, and he was certain that it had a face that looked like a monkey. Since then, only about 10% of our reports explicitly contain that ape-like face reference. We don't know if it's a shapeshifter, if it's two different phenomenon, or if it's a population that has got a mutation in it and only a few of the individuals in that population have this mutation. We're certain that it's a reproducing population. We've had reports of mother cats with kittens, and the reports go back all the way to 1968, and that's longer than any cat lives even in captivity. And then reports all up and down the gorge. So we're fairly certain that there's a population of these things living out there, and just the sheer number of folks that have seen it, including senior law enforcement officials, tells us that we're dealing with some kind of real phenomenon.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Has any wildlife, game and fish type people come forward anonymously or publicly either? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, in fact, so I'll go through these phases where I'll think, that monkey face thing, it must have been a reporting error, or there was something about the way the light was hitting it or something like that. And I'll think, maybe it's just an anomaly, maybe it's not real. And then I heard from a fire crew chief who had her whole team of 5 guys up by Mount Adams. They were on a 3-day deployment, and they saw this thing with the monkey-like face on their first day, and they wondered what the hell they were going to do if it ever showed up in their camp. But we often get, in fact, there's a Skamania County patrolman. I was talking with the Skamania County Sheriff about it, and she thought it was a fun story. But like you'd expect law enforcement to be skeptical. I gave her the map, showed her where someone were as a gift, and she took it back to the station, and within 15 minutes, one of her patrol officers said that he had seen it too. Exactly in the spot where we've got one of the ape cat icon markers from a previous report.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. And you said that we're by a railroad. I don't know if anyone can hear that. So I'm going to move the camera here to reposition it to see some of the images that you have up here. You have an illustration of some of the cats this area has had before. Well, 2 of them potentially. Mm-hmm. Which one of the 3 matches the description best of the Klickitat?
So this orange one here is a cougar, and this is a cougar skull for comparison, so you get a sense of how big it is. The next creature in red, this is a Bengal tiger. This is the largest living cat on Earth. This one up here is a Panthera atrox, also known as the American lion. This creature lived here in Washington State alongside human beings, said to have gone extinct 10,000 years ago. This is the skull of Panthera atrox. And so you can see, when you compare it to the skull of a cougar, it's just orders of magnitude different. So just an enormous creature. And the reports that we get, when people talk about it being enormous in size, you're often worried that, okay, they were in a high stress moment, are they misremembering? But we'll get comparisons. People will say, yeah, it jumped into the road and its back was as tall as the hood of my Jeep Rubicon. Another guy told me that it was as tall as his Ford Escort. One of my employees said that she saw the creature in Klickitat Canyon coming to work one morning, and when she described it to her family, said, oh, you probably just saw a black cow. And so that is how big the creature that we're talking about is, which absolutely matches the fossil record of the Panthera atrox. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is an Ice Age remnant. I don't know. What's interesting to me is that it is genetically possible in an environment where humans are alive that cats can grow that big. The other interesting feature of the Panthera atrox is that it is sexually dimorphic, and that means the females are smaller than the males. And in our data, we see that about half the reports say that the creature is that enormous size, 4 to 5 feet tall at the shoulder. The rest of the reports say that the creature is the size of a jacked up cougar. And so that sort of conforms with the sexual dimorphism theory. Where it came from, impossible to say. There are Native American traditions about a race of panther protector creatures. They're called the Mishepashu. These stories mostly come from the Great Lakes region of the U.S. And in an account I read from a Jesuit missionary in 1632, I think it was, he described some rock art that he had seen of the creature and said that it was a black cat the size of a calf with a long tail and a face that looked somewhat like a man. And so there is some records that indicate that there may be creatures like this encountered in Native American traditions, but again, that's in a completely different part of the country. There are petroglyphs here, coincidentally, over by Horse Thief Lake. And I don't know if you can see this petroglyph up here, but this petroglyph shows what appears to be a strange cat-like creature with wavy water lines under its neck. And that would, one interpretation is that maybe the kind of cat we're talking about, and with those wavy water lines indicating that it may be part of that underwater supernatural panther protector tradition. Again, no one knows, no one living knows what these petroglyphs mean or what they're referencing. So a theory. The most interesting theory is that they escaped from the Hanford nuclear site just upriver. So the Hanford nuclear site was our biggest plutonium processing plant during the Cold War. And at the time, it was a part of the Manhattan Project. When it started up, they had an animal testing program there from day one. And they were doing radiation tests on all kinds of creatures. At the height of the Cold War, they could house 1,000 large animals there at a time. And it was closed down in the 1980s. And it's now a Superfund cleanup site. The U.S. Park Service took it over, and they interviewed a lot of the people that work there. And I've watched probably 3 or 4 hours of interviews with the leader of the animal testing program. And he describes an incident where they were doing radiation experiments on apex predators. Those predators outsmarted the scientists and escaped into the Columbia River, and they were unable to capture them. Specifically, he talks about alligators. And so they had 6 alligators that escaped. They were irradiated, they were experimental, and they put out press releases about it so the population was aware that lived in the area. They caught 4 of them, but 2 remained at large. And he said that even into the 1980s, he was getting questions from Fish and Wildlife guys asking him if he knew anything about alligators in the Columbia, and he always just hung up on him and said no. And he laughs about it in these interviews. Now, an alligator is not a cat, and so how could this possibly work? Well, since the 1950s, the U.S. government has used dolphins to guard some of our most sensitive nuclear sites. And they do that because a radar or sonar can't tell the difference between like a Soviet scuba diver coming in to sabotage or infiltrate your site and like a tuna or a porpoise or something else. So basically, they found out that they could train dolphins to tell the difference, and the dolphins could then intercept these divers. Well, it was an extremely successful program. Right now, dolphins guard 1/4 of the U.S. nuclear stockpile. But it would be great to bring that program into Hanford, because Hanford's got basically 45 miles of the Columbia River flowing through it. Very difficult security program. And so if you were in charge of security at Hanford, you would, and you saw the success of the dolphin program, you'd ask yourself a really simple question. If we can't bring dolphins in here because they only operate in salt water, is there a creature that we can modify to become a sentinel creature for this site, for a riverine environment? You might look at alligators, but you would certainly look at jaguars. Jaguars are excellent riverine hunters. They are able to swim 1 kilometer in the open ocean. They can hold their breath for 15 minutes, and they have night vision that's 6 times better than a human being. If you were inclined to start a trial program of creating a sentinel creature to guard a river site like Hanford, jaguars would definitely be on the top of your list. And so if you're not going to evoke supernatural panther protectors, turns out that escape from the nuclear lab upriver is the most rational explanation for where these things came from. Again, it's just a theory, and I can't say for sure, but we're trying to make sense of the data.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting theory for sure. I did not know about any of this, and I'm sure someone probably talked about it in a book and I didn't really take it in, but
You know, this is a very interesting niche cryptid. Thank you for going into that. That's fantastic. Not exactly sure I want them to exist. Going around through the woods. A big cat like that, I mean, that skull back there is just impressively large, and I can only imagine what seeing one of those things in real life would be like. As far as Bigfoot goes, I mean, is there an area, you know, a generalized area, but a spot where you think there's probably the best chance of seeing one, or for doing research like I do, trying to get them on a trail camera or something? Because I'm seeing a lot of different red lines and different pins on this board here. I'm wondering what the spot might be.
Well, so the gorge has always had Sasquatch encounters. In fact, Skamania County was the first governmental body in the world to enact Bigfoot protection legislation. So if you shoot and kill a Sasquatch in Skamania County, and the coroner determines it's a human being, you'll get charged, or a hominid, you'll get charged with manslaughter. And so they take it very seriously out here. And there's this area right here. It's called the Monte Cristo Natural Preserve. The locals call it Monster Mountain because there are so many Sasquatch sightings in this area. And so yes, we have a ton of them there. Also up by Mount St. Helens, obviously historically a huge Sasquatch hotspot. And then all along the river, there have been reports even last summer of Sasquatch being out there along the 5 tunnels on Highway 14. Been reports of them swimming across the river. There was a freeway cam that caught one apparently jumping over a guardrail on Interstate 84 over just a little bit east of the town of Hood River. So this place is thick with them.
Fantastic, thank you. Is there maybe a favorite sighting that you've been told that just really sticks with you, that you think is just, I don't know, what's the word? It carries the ring of truth to you that just really stands out? Or are they all pretty equal as far as just authenticity?
You know, what's interesting about that is we had hundreds of reports, obviously. And the ones that are really the most credible to me are kind of the ones that are the most boring. Like we'll hear a guy say, yeah, I was riding my quad runner on a trail through the forest, a giant black cat jumped across the trail, scared the crap out of me, and I never saw it again. That's his entire story. That's not a guy that's trying to execute an elaborate hoax. It's not a guy that's trying to make a quick buck. That's a guy who saw something weird in the woods that he can't explain, and it just was a flash. And most of the reports we get are like that. And so, you know, again, for me, I came at this, it was, to be perfectly honest with you, a marketing plan for my story. I thought, you know what, if we do paranormal reports, we'll have something to differentiate us. 400 reports later, you know, I'm forced to confront the idea that either the people that I'm talking to are just stupid, which I refuse to believe. These are beautiful, wonderful, truthful people. Or they've come in here and they decided they're just going to lie to me. And I also find that impossible to believe. And so I was forced to confront this notion that, you know, I've got good, honest people coming in here, people who've been hunting or hiking in the woods all their lives. They know this area, they know the wildlife here, and they saw something that science does not yet recognize. To me, that means science doesn't understand it, not that the people are wrong. And so that's why this program has become really important in my life, where we are creating that place where people can tell their stories and they know they're not going to be stigmatized for them.
No, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. This is fascinating. I'm sure there's probably a question that'll come to me in an hour from now, but other than that, I don't think there's really anything else. I know I'm going to be coming back out here next year and doing some more research. I look forward to getting up in this area and hopefully getting one of those on camera, not seeing one in person.
Yeah.
But is there anything else you'd like to share? Or?
No, thanks for coming by.
All right.
Margie's Outdoor Store here in Bingen, Washington, just across the bridge from Hood River.
So shout out to Margie's. If you have any Klickitat, ape cat, Bigfoot, Fae, or UFO sightings, you name it, in that area, feel free to contact them. I will put their website down below and their address. And I know that if you've had Bigfoot or Klickitat, ape cat sightings out there specifically, or any canine sightings, things that are interesting that you think I might be interested in, please feel free to contact me.
Idaho Bigfoot channel at outlook.com. I do not want to compete with Margie's Outdoor Store, but I do want to make a return trip out there at some point to have boots on the ground to look into some of these sightings. So if you do have sightings for me as well, I would appreciate hearing about them, but I know they would also. So shout out to them. I would appreciate it if you did send your sightings to them. I think they would greatly appreciate that as well. So that being said, again, shout out to all those who gave me leads and helped me out, mostly Lawson. He was the first one to tell me about him, but there are a couple other people on the Bigfoot Reddit page, so that was fantastic, and I greatly appreciate all of the leads that I was given, so thank you. So please like this and subscribe and comment your thoughts down below. If you have had any Klickitat, Apecat, or Bigfoot sightings, commenting works also. And let me know if there's anything you think I should look into, including any kind of animal tax. And the reason I say that will become clear in part 2. Unfortunately, I was not able to record anything, but there were some reports of that were shared in part 2. So I feel like that's going to be very interesting for you guys as well. So anyway, guys, I'll let you get going, and I hope you have a good one.